So, hi, Shawn. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of... We're on the Star Trek Enterprise. All right, so I don't know what we're going to talk about. Neither does Shawn. Shawn, as you can see, is very involved in eating. How are you in frame there? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want people to miss all of this. This is white privilege. All right, let's really shake this up. And by the way, if you're listening on Fandom Lim, I am now shaking the decision-making box. So, the Calvin Ball. And the subject of today's episode is... Let's see. I really devoted to squishing these up. All right. This is going to get real specific to Shawn and Trevor, everybody. The last days of radio, which we were most definitely around for. The last days of radio on this episode of... So yeah, we... one of the many things that we kind of bonded on growing up in Sarasota, Florida in the 90s was a love of radio. And I'm going to start by telling you, you may have forgotten this, your love of radio was realized by me by virtue of the fact that you were the only person I knew at our school in our age that was actively listening to oldies radio. You were a big fan of the radio station then known in Sarasota, Florida as Oldies 106. You were about it, as the kids say.
Right, but that wasn't really a love of radio. That was a love of oldies.
Well, not so much, because what I remember specifically, is some of the formatting of it. Like we particularly were fond of a gentleman, a friend of ours, named Brian Holmes, and I think what you early on were. And I later realized that Brian was doing a very different radio show than the format of oldies, but he was playing oldies. He was running it like a top 40.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely a top 40 DJ at a bottom 40 radio station.
Yeah. But he was always like number one. I mean, there were many times because he had the same time slot. There's a guy a lot of people know now, a guy named Bubba the Love Sponge. And Bubba back then was just local. He didn't have any kind of national thing. And he was on the other station that we had friends at that we used to go to, 93.3 FLZ.
Wait, don't gloss this over. When we were teenagers in high school, we hung out at radio stations.
Yes, that's true.
That's not a normal thing.
No.
Well,
not entirely. I learned of a thing a few years ago that used to exist. And we were not this, but we were in the same area. Prize pigs. Have you ever heard did Brian ever say the term prize pigs to you?
No.
Okay. Stan pointed out, I think Stan was anyway. Prize pigs
You mean Stan Priest?
Stan the Man Priest.
The music director for 93.3
FLZ.
Power 93 FLZ in Florida?
That's correct.
The station that Bubba the Love Sponge came from.
And there were many times we were saying about Brian running this show like a top 40 radio station with the energy and the excitement. There were many times, and Bubba was on, we should say, Power 93 and 93.3 FLZ, as it later became, were top 40 stations. And there were many times, not many, but there were certainly times where Brian in Sarasota was doing way better than Bubba. And it was still the same kind of show, but just completely different format. And Brian proved and showed us just, like we actually got to see it in front of us, that it didn't really matter what the format was. It was what you brought to it. He made it work.
Right. But when you talk about love of radio, oh God, I guess we got to talk about this.
What, Midnight Madness?
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Well, no, we're talking about the last days of radio. We're talking about our love of radio.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any particular love of radio.
Okay.
I just remember going over to your house, and you had this studio set up.
Exactly like this.
Exactly like this, yes. A couple of tape decks and a couple of mics and a board. And at the time, like, it did, to me, look like this.
Me too. Yeah. Because it was more than nothing, which is what I had before.
It was real legit.
Expensive.
I was real impressed with it. And you told me about how on the weekends you recorded this radio show called The Midnight Madness.
Show. Yeah. Recording a radio show was when you hooked it up to the tuner and hit record.
Right.
But yeah, we made a show.
But it was like a podcast.
Yes.
Except it, instead of going on the internet, it went on a cassette tape. And instead of 15 people listening to it, nobody listened to it.
Well, we may have gotten 15, but it was friends of ours that we handed the tapes off to at school.
I never handed any tapes to anybody. I don't remember you ever doing that.
Janine had a bunch. And maybe I only gave them to girls, but that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, given your propensity for not getting laid in high school.
Yeah, and for thinking, rather than just be cool.
Hey, baby.
Memorize a joke or two.
I'm a pretend DJ.
No, I gotta fucking pretend I have a D. Okay, so let's talk about that, because I'll tell you where that all came from. Immediately.
Well, let me finish my story.
Okay.
So.
And you look to two giant.
I know, I'm dumb.
Fucking bites.
So you were like, yeah, this is my radio station set up. I pretend to make a radio show on.
I even had the name of the station. Tell them what the station name was.
WKIS
96.3 FM. KISS 96. Because I knew enough to know that even then I knew that KISS was a generic name for a radio station.
Yeah. So, you showed me all this and I was like, well, holy shit, I want to be on that.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
And you wouldn't
like, holy shit, I really would like a friend.
And you wouldn't know it to listen to it, because the first few times you ever did anything with me and or Jesse, the guy who I did the show with, everything you did was visual. You were like, yeah, we're on the radio show. I'm going to stand on my chair.
I mean, that was just my brand.
Yeah. You were very, into face art, face articulations.
It was more about making you laugh than doing anything for the I knew I wasn't going to get a laugh out of the cassette tape.
No, that's true. They don't laugh, but they're like Lutherans. But I do remember we had a after school suspension one day together, and normally I could be passing.
That's called a detention.
Well, either way, when that happened, I could rely on you to talk to me and defy the teacher, but not this day, because on this day you had a mirror. And the mirror was on the thing, and I'm trying to make contact with you, and you're over there. But I don't know.
Said the guy making funny faces while telling a story about how I made funny faces for.
Sorry, Fandom Limb listeners, you don't get to see my ugly mug.
Well, you were also looking down at the table, so I don't think
that's where you had the mirror. You had the mirror on the desk, so you're in that little cubicle making. Anyway, the point is that you were very visually oriented back then. But and so now. So I guess we do have to talk about Midnight Madness, but we'll get there.
I feel like we covered it.
I mean, I do want to talk about maybe we'll talk, because we're going to talk about Python eventually. The audio sketches was not something that we heard a lot on radio. It was more that we were into Python and a few other record acts that we were like, and I remember we recreated the spam sketch for Oldies 106. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
So I'll tell the story. Maybe you should finish your sandwich, because you're going to be worthless for this. But yeah, you were living at Chelsea's, and what?
You got a long hair hanging down from your face.
And no amount of this would have. But yeah, you were living at Chelsea's, and we had successfully given Brian, by way of Pete, what's his last name? I almost said Pete Best.
And I thought Pete Holmes.
Yeah, and it's not. No, Pete Jarrett. Yeah, Pete Jarrett. Right, was the station, the PD, and he also had a shift. So he heard we did an Imagine remix for our show about John Lennon, and they asked if they could play it, and somehow Brian was doing a month about spam. Do you remember that now? Brian, for some reason, decided that it was like some kind of weird celebration of spam that month. And so he decided he was going to do all sorts of spam shit on his show. And it didn't take long before you and me were over there and like, you know about the Python, about spam, the sketch. And he had no idea. So I think we reenacted it for him right there in the room. And he was like, can you guys record that? And we did. But like we went and used all of the background audio and sound effects from the actual recording from the album, when we could have just given them the sketch from the album, but instead we recreated it for them. So that was like one of the first times we got to hear us, and Shawn doesn't remember, but that was a big deal. Not for Shawn apparently, but for me. So the other thing about the radio stuff, we would go up to 93.3 FLZ on weekends, and again, it was a weird thing, because we did not like the music. We were not a fan at all of the top 40 stuff. I would go up and visit them in my 9 Inch Nails shirts with, no eyebrows and black hair and fingernails and all this stuff.
So I want to tell this story.
Okay.
Because I learned so much going up there.
Yeah.
Namely, Stan Priest did a live, DJ session on the air, with vinyl, with turntables.
Mm-hmm. Mixy.
And was it Capone that answered the phones?
Capone was not at 93. It was, he had a weird name, but yeah.
Whatever. So Stan would play all the music, and there was a guy that would answer. It was a request show.
Yeah.
So you would call in, you would request a song, and it would be mixed into this live DJ show.
Which, if you know anything about DJing, like mixing two songs and stuff, it's inherent that the tempo be somewhat close to the request. So in other words, if you request a song, and we're going already at 115 beats per minute, and you request a song that's 107, that's going to be tricky.
And you gotta plan it out. Mm-hmm. So if you know you've got the request coming up, you gotta do a song that bridges in between.
Yep.
So my favorite thing about this was we'd watch this guy answering the phone and taking these requests. And of course, it's a top 40 station. It's a big thing. The phone doesn't stop ringing. He's just answering continually.
Sometimes we answered the phones just to help.
Until he stopped. He would just ignore the phones for a minute just to talk to us. But what he would do is, we would hear the callers, and they'd be like, hey, can you play Hit Me Baby one more time? And he'd be like, yeah, absolutely. But can you do me a quick favor? And then he would tell them, can you just say, can you play me this song? Right. And then they would repeat that back.
And they would use that.
And then he would cut out their actual request and play their fake request, and that's the song they would play.
And that was the other thing, too, is that I remember saying to him how cool I think this is that you're able to go this quickly and you're able to, think on your feet. And he said, it ain't nothing, cousin. This is the same goddamn 20 songs over and fucking over again. Yeah. They're going to request the songs we're going to play.
They could just play last week's show and not a fucking person would know.
I do remember the one time we did have influence on him because Stan he's a crowd pleaser, as every DJ really at the end of the day is. And there was this Fatboy Slim song that was making the rounds in the clubs.
Weapon of Destruction or Weapon of Choice?
No, but probably that album, the Weapon of Choice album. But there was a white label remix of it that had a sample of Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, and I remember him play. He would play it a couple times, for a few weeks. And I remember we were up there one night, and I just go, Like right when I see him going for it to get ready to mix it in, I go, dude, you should mix in the actual Rolling Stone. You should actually mix in Satisfaction. And he goes, I can't do that, Cuzzy. I'll be stuck in rock and roll for the rest of the night. I'm like, would that be so fucking bad? And I felt like Jim Carrey at the MTV Awards in that hippie garb. Would it kill you to play a little fog hat? But he actually had a copy on 45 of the Rollings of Satisfaction, and he did mix into it for like a minute.
Wow. I feel like mixing into a 45 from a 33 must be a whole extra level of pain.
It's annoying. Yeah, it's very... But he did it because I was just because I was standing there. I mean, like, come on, Stan, you know you can do it. Do it. And this was when J-Core still owned them before they got bought out. But
by Clear Channel.
By Clear Channel, of course. But yeah.
Clear Channel. We own all of them now.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're calling it the last days of radio, because that was when you could actually legitimately have, radio station feuds. We were around for the hip hop station that's in Sarasota, Tampa now, that area, when it was originally a guy on his boat. It was called Wild 98.7. And this guy was on his boat just playing Wild Thing by Tone Loc over and over and over again on loop. That's how that radio station started. And you and I were actually there at 93.3 one night when it was like 2 a.m. We're in the parking lot. We're helping everybody load up, and we're just bullshitting with all the DJ people. And somebody from 98.7 drove by and started yelling at us. And just they started screaming back. And what killed me about it was that I thought it was just a random person until they were like 98.7, and they're like, they ran off, and was like, and I was like, no, Stan was like, no, that's the actual guy. And I remember being so like, who is that for? It's 2 a.m. No one's listening to either station. And if there are, jocks aren't getting on. Like, we're fighting with 93.3. It was totally for them.
And nobody in the building is hearing some dude driving past the parking lot.
It's not going out over the air on either station.
And it's also worth noting that, radio stations were already clustered at this point.
Yeah.
Because you had 93.3 WYNF, I think it was 95.5. Mm-hmm. And 5 other stations all in that same building.
Right. Yeah. A lot more. And also, to go back to talking about Brian, I think part of our love of radio at that time was somewhat to do with his love of radio. Because we sat with him one day, and
how did that happen?
What?
I do not remember how it came about that we drove to Oldies 106 one evening and went in and hung out in the studio with the DJ.
I'll tell that story in a minute, but I wanted to just say first that one day when you and I were visiting him at 106, and it was just 106 and YNF in that building, which is gone now, by the way, the building, not YNF, he played for us the big fanboy geek moment that he had, which was, we mentioned the station 93.3 FLZ. 93.3 was before that the Power Pig, but before that it was same thing, just different name, but Top 40. But it became Top 40 when Brian was 14 years old. It went from an oldies station called Oldies 93, and the morning station, and again, this is like we say, the last days of radio, where if you were to hear something like this now, it'd be like Shawn said, Clear Channel owns all the stations. It would be completely fabricated. But this is legitimately 2 separate owned companies. And the morning show, Jack Harris, the morning show on Oldies 93 was going after Q105 and saying, because Q105 was the big top 40 station at the time. They're going,
yeah, look. But by the time that this story that you're telling happened, where it was a country station.
Yeah, they had definitely wiped the floor with them. But what was so great about it was that for a full week, or for a full month, they were, hassling Q105 and saying, and the thing that Brian played for us was when it got to the tipping point, because they were just like, they were even doing something.
This I do remember, by the way.
Yeah. And this was also, he said that they would also do things that week where they would just randomly play like a Paula Abdul song or something in the middle of all the oldie stuff. And then after that be like, oops, You know, like we're preparing for the future or something like that. You know, if you like this stuff, you know.
Yeah, the fucked up part is now Paula Abdul absolutely is played on oldie stations.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, so then they call the morning show called. They called the station owner, and he wasn't in the country. They called him in some, like, you know, remote place of the world, and they got him on the phone. And it's like in the middle of the night over where he is or whatever. And he's like, and they're like, listen, we've been threatening you. It's like, look, you need to pay us now. You need to pay us $1,000. You need to pay us whatever it is, $10 million to not go top 40. And the guy was just like, bring it on. He goes, all right. And then he pushes a button. And then there's like 2 minutes of production where you hear like all this static. And from then on, the radio station was top 40 and they crushed Q105.
I mean, if you need further evidence, Q105 went country.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember the production, like it went from oldies and like was all staticky and
yep.
Like, you know, old car radios.
And Brian
and then it like did some oink sound effect.
That's because it was the Power Pig. They were turning into the Power.
We're now the Power Pig.
And Brian was such a diehard that like he skipped school knowing that this was the day that they were going to finally change it, because we weren't.
When you say diehard,
well, hold on, this isn't.
You mean socially awkward nerd, right?
I mean, I didn't think there needed to be any clarification, but yeah, he skipped school, and it wasn't like, you know, now where you can just get on YouTube and find a clip of something. This was him playing his cassette copy that he.
Please understand, listeners. A lot of you may be younger than us.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not that old. But when we were in high school,
technology
things existed for the moment they existed, and then they vanished forever.
That's about it. Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, so it was pretty unique to sit and listen to that, but it's the kind of thing, just thinking about it now, that would never happen. I mean, radio sadly is still here, but you would never see anything like that. It's not even no one cares about the personalities anymore, or the what the station is like.
I have not listened to a non-NPR radio station in at least a decade.
And it's so weird, because that's what we're trying to really express to you guys. We loved 93.3, a radio station that did not play any music that we liked. It was all personality. That was the attraction. Yeah. No?
And now it's all...
Same with me and Oldies 106. I wasn't a big Oldies fan, but I was there with you. I was like, this, especially with Brian. Now, we do need to talk about that, because you asked about...
Yeah, I don't remember how that came about.
What I recall is...
I do remember, like, you had a relationship with Stan at 93.3 because you were also a DJ, and he was sort of your DJ mentor.
He was.
I don't remember how our relationship with Brian Holmes came about.
It came about, I believe. So I don't remember who it was that called him first, whether it was me or you, to make a request. I do remember at the time you were pretty fond of making a request in the form of a quote from Good Morning Vietnam. All right, I'll be you be the Oldies 106 DJ.
Oldies 106, hello!
Hey, can I make a request?
Yes.
Anything, just play it loud!
Oh, did I do that?
You did that.
Oh.
That's a funny word.
What a fucking hack.
Hey, man, if you're going to steal from the best.
Yeah, you know? But if I could get a time machine and slap myself in the face right now in the past, I would.
Dude, that would be all I'd... Yeah, there's so many slaps. So many slaps in the past.
You would just slap yourself and go, look at me! Why?
Didn't Patton Oswalt do that, where he was talking about the George Lucas going back in time, and like he's like, hey, I know, dude, I know.
If I had a time machine, I would go back in time and kill George Lucas with a shovel, I believe.
Hey, listen, man, I know. Well, look, don't have fried rice for breakfast every day. So yeah, we were very. It does not surprise me in the least to know that at least one of us has a podcast studio in their house as an adult, because of the influence that radio had on us. Now, I was going to start to tell this earlier. What triggered it for me, if anything, was a little movie, and it is a little movie, called Pump Up the Volume.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Pump Up the Volume is also the reason why I know Leonard Cohen is awesome.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows was Happy Harry Hard-On's theme song.
Side note, do you remember when we went to Dating Ourselves Again, a store in the mall called Tape World?
Yes.
Tape World. Holy
Yes.
shit. Specifically looking for Leonard Cohen.
Yep.
Do you remember?
Remember?
When I was the one that found the Leonard Cohen CD there, what I said to you, the first thing I said when I picked up a Leonard Cohen CD for the first time.
Wait, you found the CD in the Tape World?
Tape World was selling CDs by that point. They had
Very futuristic.
They just had not rebranded.
Okay. I do not recall, no.
I said, "Oh my God, he's white."
Yeah. Yeah, he has a very soulful...
I think everybody knows was our entire knowledge of his oeuvre.
Ooh.
And I just assumed he was black. I did not I mean, his name is Leonard Cohen. I should have realized he was a Jewish man.
There's plenty of black people named Leonard, but not a whole lot named Cohen.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I saw that movie in, I want to say 1991. And I had just gotten like my turntable set up because I wanted to be a DJ and all that, and the mixer, and you got to have a mic. Also, I had, as a kid, I'd always been, I'd listened to Garrison Keillor, and I remember distinctly my dad had a cassette recorder of some kind for work, and going into my garage with a microphone and trying to tell stories, but specifically going in the garage to recreate that echoey sound of the auditorium that the Lake Wobegon and the Prey on Companion story does. So I had that thing where I wanted to recreate what I'd heard, but when I saw Happy Harry Hard-On, that's where the name Renob came from for sure, is the idea that a radio DJ is putting on a persona and it's a dick name.
and Renob was your DJ name.
I don't know if it was the first one, but it was definitely the one I settled on.
Yes. And then your general nickname for many years.
Yeah. So let's pretend like I'm the one who wanted people to keep calling him Spooge well after it was appropriate.
I mean, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. You held on to it a little longer than I did.
But you just dropped Renob in there matter-of-factly.
Yeah, because that was the name.
Because you forgot that other people were listening to this.
Well,
beyond.
I'm getting ready to say that Midnight Madness, the show that we eventually did, those were our names, Renob and Spooge, and it was definitely partially Hard Harry was the reason why the penis names.
Yeah. I just want to say that you set up that you were about to tell the story about how we got to hanging out with Brian at the oldie station.
Okay, so...
And then you completely dropped it.
Yeah, because I really don't remember.
Okay, so...
My memory is that one of us called him during one of our many sleepovers because we were often in the habit of listening to Oldies 106 and calling, and one of the earliest memories I have of Brian before I even knew what he looked like was him. I said something about eating pussy to him on the phone, like, cranking him, and he was just like, "Hey, how about this? How about you tell me what pussy tastes like?" I was like, "This is an oldie station. What are you doing? I'm supposed to be the wild and crazy one. What the hell?"
That's great.
But so you remember, and I will try my best for the visual portion of this show. We can't do this for the podcast, obviously the audio, but you were quite right very often to make fun of the all-purpose family at the Siesta Beach in white Jesus garb pictures that we had all over the house.
Oh yeah.
That day that those pictures were taken was the first time I ever met Brian.
Oh.
Because we took him on what beach was that? That's fucking Lido or Longboat?
That was out on Longboat.
Okay. So Oldies 106 is on Longboat Key. So, and we were out on the beach. That's where we're getting the pictures taken. So on the way home, I was driving at the time myself. So I drove myself back to the house, and I decided I'm just going to go. I know he's there. I know, blah, blah, blah. So I just knocked on the door and I told him I was Renob. And that's when he met me, was when I was in the fucking Jesus garb. With my hair exactly like this, by the way. But yeah.
I recall there being some color in it then.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not some color, all color. There's no color in it now. So.
Yeah. You look like a black and white photo of yourself from high school.
But yeah, that's what I remember. And then I told him, that you and me are always hanging out and stuff. And he was just like, you guys should come out and hang out. And he didn't know right away who Stan was. He knew of Stan. He didn't know Stan personally when we met him. That came a little later because remember he had that whole, you probably shouldn't say, but the whole drug time when we were doing the process. When he was getting into that, that's when he became friends.
My favorite thing about Brian was he had this he put on this gravelly voice and he was so excited. And then you meet him and he looks like a 6-month-old baby that got hit with a growth ray.
He looks like Pete Holmes with glasses.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
Maybe they're related.
Maybe. Oh my God, Holmes! You're right. Fuck, I didn't even put that together.
This fucking guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. I need to lie down. But yeah, maybe. Fuck. But yeah, he certainly. You don't have the on-air light on. She's gonna come in here.
My wife's gonna come in and be like, "Hey, stuff and words and things."
She would say that.
I'm such a great ad-libber. Stuff and words and things.
We were talking about how our old stuff and the stuff that we were interested in was very podcasty because it was personality based.
And again, a reminder, this is the 90s.
Yeah.
Podcasts did not exist. iPods did not exist.
No. That's the other thing I always forget, too. Podcasts are called that because of the iPod.
Yeah.
Weird. But what was I going to say? God damn it.
All the stuff we like is podcasty because...
Yeah.
And mine like a steel trap. But
a stolen trap.
But just with bars. So everything just leaks right out. So, I think it's appropriate that episode 1, we talked about something that I introduced to you. And the love of radio is something you introduced to me. So we got a little game of introduction tennis going on.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe next episode will be something we discover together. Oh, dude, talk.
So the one area which this I think is very different, you and I distinctly have different opinions on Opie and Anthony.
Yes, you like them, and I am just not familiar and don't really have an opinion at all.
Oh, really? I thought you hated him. Oh, no. You know what? I'm mistaking you with Jimmy, which is very easy to do.
Yes.
Jimmy, by the way, for those that don't know, is...
Everybody. Nobody knows.
Literally
nobody knows.
Is black in the way that Shawn is white. Every way.
Yes.
But yeah, he's not a fan. But I'll tell you why I did why I progressed to Opie and Anthony. It was because it felt like... So there was a period when we legit thought that Midnight Madness could be a career for us. We were very young, very delusional.
Oh, yes.
But we were gung-ho. And when I first got into Opie and Anthony, there was part of me that felt like this could have been what we could have achieved with having such a interesting, distant relationship with radio, because there's a lot of Opie and Anthony that reads as radio for people who hate radio.
Sure.
It's very good at making fun, in the way that Monty Python made you aware of how fucking bland television was. Opie and Anthony did a lot to make you realize, oh wait, that's actually bullshit. And they did a lot of the more popular podcasters out there have said that Opie and Anthony was a very big influence on them, for getting rid of the theater of the mind aspect, the bullshit aspect of radio, where it's like, oh, we got 25 lines blowing up, and it's a 3-line fucking,
system.
Yeah. And it's like all that kind of stuff was
It's all theater.
All theater, and they relished in that. They was kind of like how Penn Jillette assume that this is bullshit. Everything that they go in is like, the audience knows that radio is bullshit, so here's what we're playing with today. I know about Prep Burger, which is a thing now that completely removes any creativity from your morning show. Prep Burger is a service that literally makes everything for you, sketches, bits, even callers, so that you can set up like Stan was doing with the making this. Yeah. So Prep Burger is literally a service that's out of the box. All you have to do is follow the instructions and you've got a show. So they did Prep Burger bits. So that's
like morning shows now.
They're probably
everything that calls themselves a morning zoo is probably just
Prep Burger.
Ordered off a Prep Burger.
Exactly.
Like you just pull up to the window, yell at the speaker, and then they deliver you a radio show.
And then there's other things like they'll have certain, I remember they had a Perez Hilton fashion thing, and it's made to be like you are, oh, Perez Hilton's coming to see us today. There he is. Hey, Pez. And you hit Perez and you hit the button. He goes, hey, 103.5 or whatever the fuck it is, for your, whatever you signed up. It's they exposed all the phoniness of radio.
So, let's segue from the last days of radio into what's probably the death knell for radio, which is what we're doing right now.
And if you talk to some of them, the biggest diehards, they're showing their age. Like Howard Stern, I don't think he's saying this now, but there was a time when Stern was on the record as being like, podcasts are going to go away so quickly. It's amateur. He goes, in 10 years, there won't be any podcasts. That was like 10 years ago.
And he went from being a shock jock to basically he's the elder statesman. He's the Dick Cavett now.
Dick Cavett is at least still able to do what he always did.
But no, what I mean is Stern is no longer the shock jock guy. He's not the shocking guy. He's not the guy that, he's the respectable elder statesman. Like if you go on Howard Stern, like it's a respectable journalistic experience. But podcasts are the utter democratization of what was once radio. We can go on and talk, we used to pitch shows and segments to radio stations.
Yeah.
At Oldies 106, I think it was 108 by then, we pitched a segment called Before and After, which was just playing an original version of a song and a cover of the song back to back.
Right.
That was a good idea, as evidenced by the fact that
Pete stole it.
That the program director for the station absolutely stole it and rebranded it. And
when we say stole, we do literally mean the man said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate it. And then like a week later, we heard it on his show.
Yes. Just with a different name.
Right.
What did he call it?
I don't know. Fucking.
It was a not as good name.
Not as a good name as that.
Yeah. I mean, Before and After, not super creative.
No, but I mean, it's exactly what it was. Yeah. And it makes sense.
It's descriptive.
And it sounds good in a sweeper. Before and after.
Yeah.
That was the before. Here's the after. It works.
We made that sweeper because we put it on our radio station.
Yeah.
Because fuck Pete Jarrett.
Yeah, fuck Pete Jarrett.
But, now, if we want to do that, we don't have to have a radio show. We can create ourselves whatever we want. And everyone can, for better or for worse. And I love the democratization of media through YouTube and through podcasts and all of these things. Everybody can get put out there, and you would like to think that the cream floats to the top, but usually it's just PewDiePie up there.
Yeah. Can I tell you, I also felt superior when the podcast thing started to take hold, and I realized that people everywhere who were not like us, were not tech heads, were not, AV nerds and shit, and that I realized that a whole new generation of people was having to do what you and I did the hard version of, which is like calling up the radio station just to ask what kind of microphones they use. And like I've had it for years, like this little piece of notebook paper, Electro Voice RE20. And I know like now there's like generations of people doing the same thing. What mic should I use for my podcast?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I literally, I'm in podcaster groups on Reddit and Facebook and all of this. Yeah. And people literally post a screenshot from a video like the one we're making right now and be like, can anyone identify this microphone?
Yeah. Or episodes of Frasier or whatever. Like,
and, I guess I did a guest spot on Fake Doctors, Real Friends with Zach Braff and Donald Faison.
Very good appearance, by the way, even though it wasn't an appearance.
Thank you. I appeared before them.
Yes.
It was all over Zoom. And Zach was like, hey, Daniel, their producer, he's like, can you take a screenshot? I think I need all of the gear that he has in his studio. And, throughout our relation to each other, we've always wanted to build.
You can call it a friendship.
Yeah, sure. That thing. That's the word.
That's what a normal person would call it. Yeah.
Obviously, there's the disconnect.
Sure.
But it started with your studio in your bedroom at your parents' house as a teenager.
Yeah.
And then, in the year, in like 99, 2000, 2001, remember I had that loft bed, and in the space under the loft, I got myself a board and some mics, and I made like a little studio. Is this when you were living with
Josh?
Yes.
Yeah.
With Evil Josh. So like there was that, and like we've always had some permutation of this.
Every place we've lived in our adulthood, there's been studio space.
Some form of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I finally have gotten to, like, pretty much the apex for me.
And also, eventually, I want to do Touche El Douche again. And Touche El Douche, again, is a podcast that was born out of, a love of radio. I mean, especially the format, too. Like, the sweepers and we have a break in the middle, but it's actually just...
Yeah, and... if you listen to Table Reads at tablereadspodcast.com, unlike most, you'll hear a lot of like production and, sweeps and drops.
Same with Ted.
And there's a well-produced intro that Trevor made.
I did?
You made the original and then I updated it.
Yeah. I was going to say it's been a while.
But I'm giving you the credit because like you came up with the sound for it. So anyway, all of that, lots of podcasts have that kind of stuff, but usually they're recording something and then they go in and post and they drop all that stuff in. I run it like a live radio station because that's what we're used to. That's what
and that's why we did Touche El Douche that way,
and that comes from, living through the last days of radio to bring it back to our subject. Do you realize
if it hadn't been, like if we were still... into this stuff, but we hadn't had all the radio training, that would be a eureka moment to be like, oh wait, we can do all of our production and play it live, and we don't have to edit it.
I don't know if we'd have that eureka moment. We'd probably just do it the hard way.
Yeah, the way everybody else does it.
Now running it that way is not easy. You have to keep all that in your mind,
right?
And the setup is a lot more intense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I've got my control panel here that you can't see, it's out of the camera, but it's a vast control panel with all these buttons for doing all these things.
Hang on, I'm going to film you with my phone.
I was going to play some of the sound effects off of it, but we're not recording that channel. But yeah, it's all set up like this. Get this whole board, like 32 channels in and out. It's a lot. And the mics go straight back to our days at the radio stations because they used Electro Voice RE20s, and I've got 4 Electro Voice RE320s, which, despite the higher number, are a slightly lesser mic, but it's like $100 cheaper.
Really?
But they're black, and so they fit in with everything better.
Yeah. And you really can't tell the difference.
No. Well, see, podcasts are all compressed audio.
Yeah.
So you don't need something as good as you would for broadcast.
Yeah, that's very true.
So it works out. They look beautiful. They They behave beautifully. And I'm real happy with this setup. And it all comes from all those early days that we spent in radio.
And also all those early days in radio stations fucking drooling over their fucking equipment and just being like, and taking real notes too, and just being like, okay, so what's the button that makes you sound great?
And there's not a single teacher that wouldn't have been jealous of our dedication and studiousness regarding that gear.
Yeah.
Why can you not do the same for your quadratic equations, buddy?
And I remember noticing just how different, what the processing sounds like. People, it's a joke almost to be like, oh, I sound different on the radio. But I do remember for a very short while hearing Stan on the phone, and then he'd be like, hey, Cuzzy, I'm going to be on the radio this week. And I listen, and it doesn't sound anything like the dude on the phone. And part of it's because he's in his fucking, hanging out, on
it's all your posture and all that. But or, also, sometimes there is putting on that thing. Like Brian Holmes be like, you guys, you got to... Welcome back to 1079!
Patrick did that too, didn't he?
No, Patrick's voice is...
Actually, Patrick just has that voice.
Yeah, he just has that DJ voice.
He just speaks like a DJ all the time. That's another thing Opie and Anthony made me very hypersensitive to, is the radio voice. And they would do it all the time. They had a show called Jocktober that would break down other morning shows, and they would just, take the piss out of them. And the second they would hear that voice, they would stop, and it would just be... Look, talk in your regular voice.
I'll be honest. Like I always deepen my voice just a slight bit when there's a microphone in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I find my voice, as it's recorded, grating.
Which is interesting because I am a very, 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 very sharp or harsh critic when it comes to that. Like there's legit stuff on YouTube that I want to watch and I can't. Right now, I'll give you an example. There's a podcast called The Discographers, and they're very knowledgeable, and they know what they're talking about. And right now, there's like a 5-part, chapter part thing on 9 Inch Nails, and I can't listen to it because the dude sounds just ridiculous. It's his natural voice, but he sounds ridiculous. He's like, and it's just like, dude, come on, man. Can you at least try? Or get someone that doesn't talk like you. Or do one of those speech fucking programs.
I just go a little bit deeper on mine.
Yeah. I'm saying you don't have anything to worry about.
Well, no, it's just a little bit deeper, and I feel like it helps me speak more clearly.
Does it?
I think so. I mean, in my head or
maybe
ears. I'm not going Eddie Vedder on this.
Oh, he's a radio guy. Did you know that? There was a brief period.
He's older than us, so he must be.
Well, sure, but he had a radio station. He had a radio show, like back when the running joke, internet on the radio.
Yeah,
he actually had an radio
Trevor.
Station.
Trevor.
What is that from, though? Is there that's from?
I don't remember at the moment.
But it was somebody that we knew. That was Mike Peter. That's who the fuck it was. Mike Peter from IRL or IRN.
The Internet Radio Network.
The whole thing is so fucking convoluted. His whole website is like, but it's a radio station on the internet.
Which was a thing we were trying to make in 2000.
Yeah. Back when that was like a possibility and not like, everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, because podcasts still didn't exist. And we wanted to do something like that.
He's like, yeah, but I made a car that you don't have to shift. Great, Mike. They're everywhere. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
But I think that's about it, unless you can think of anything else to talk about.
I mean, hopefully next month. Next month. We'll be here talking about something from not high school.
Oh, is that what you wanted?
We've only talked about stuff that pertain to us in high school so far, really.
Okay, well, if Shawn doesn't want that, I got to go home and get the other box.
I mean, it's fine if it is.
Yeah.
I was just thinking maybe we might break a streak, but if that's all you put in there.
I mean,
glory days.
High school was the last time I liked you, so.
Oh, that's true.
Bye.
Bye.